Hello everyone, this is Sandy Gagan. I'm coming to you from my studio, and this is the discussion for June 9th. So this is a discussion about contour drawing today, and I think that you'll find it very beneficial to your overall process. Now, this is a drawing by the great master Henri Matisse. And he lived until 1954, so he's not, it was just a gorgeous drawing that I noticed, and you can see the impact of a contour study. So a contour drawing can be a drawing in and of itself. One of the experiences that I had with my husband is he was the visual arts editor for the Deseret News for 22 years. And we had the opportunity to see an exhibit by Matisse in Denver, Colorado. And one of the things that I enjoyed about this exhibit was a contour study that he did of a woman that was pregnant. And it was just exquisite. And the singular line was so descriptive. And you notice in this drawing, it just has so much visual impact, and it's done in pen and ink. Okay, so some basics about contour. First off, let me get this into the picture field here. This is some of the basics, and you've got to master those basics. And one of the first things that you need to master in learning how to draw the contour is to understand the basic principles. So as I mentioned, contour can be unique in its own right. It can be just a contour study, or you can have it incorporate into your value study. And for our purposes today, that's what we're going to be talking about. So I want to talk a little bit about line quality. Now, of all the things that I see that many of you are still, and that's not uncommon, by the way, that you are still working on your contour line. And so that needs to be a priority in this next week's lesson. So let me get this so you can see it. Okay. So one of the things that's very beautiful about the contour line is, as I mentioned, it can be part of the overall drawing. It's also something that can be unique to itself, like in the example that I showed you of Henri Matisse. Now, what I'd like you to do is just in your sketchbook, just practice this basic overall line quality. So here we have draw two parallel lines. And all I want you to do is draw up, around, and back. Up, around, and back. Up, around, and back. And this is the way that we approach cross contour lines, and many of you have the opportunity to do these in your foundation course, and they're very important because it's also a good way to polish your drawings and get your line just perfect. So here is coming down the column or the parallel lines, and again in and out and around. This is a good way, if you practice this is how to develop a line drawing from an animator point of view, and also using cross contour lines, but it's also descriptive of a beautiful line. Okay, so that's how to approach how to draw those cross contour lines. Now, many of you have worked on this, as I mentioned, in the foundation program, but that was just a taste or a start. So again, we're talking about contour. And contour can stand unique on its own, or it can incorporate into the value study. And for our purposes, we're going to be talking about it on how it incorporates into your value study. Now, one thing about contour is that it's very beautiful, and it's the first step in light logic. And one of the things that it does is on the outer arabesque only. These aren't decisions that are done on the interior of the form, just the outer arabesque, meaning the outer line of the form. That's called the contour line, and it's the line that's going towards the horizon line. So this outer arabesque or contour line is best described as the first step in light logic. And as the first step in light logic, it has thicks and thins. It has, again, the light logic, and it has a musicality to it. It's not a choppy line. What I don't want to see is line work that looks like you're hunting for that line edge. I call the hunt and peck because it looks like chicken scratch to me. So what I really want to develop is a line that's singular in nature and very beautiful. In an animator's point of view, he's thinking, or she is thinking, about what's commonly referred to as a robo-bean. So as a line overlaps, it starts in, it's dark, and then it passes up, over, around, and darkens again, and then it comes up as it hits this plane and comes in. But where it overlaps, it gets very dark, and right here, this is where it's darkening as well. So it's paying attention to certain planes, thicks and thins, lights and darks. It's this beautiful musicality without a choppiness. It's a singular line. It's done with the pencil staying in contact with the page and not lifting. And so if you get disoriented at any time, you can always come back and pick up the line and do it again. But you start with this basic, very light construction line, and then you can come back over and restate your contour line. And that's a good approach. So now, as we think about this contour line, it's our final approach on going into value. So we're getting this drawing prepared and ready to go into value. And this is how we do it. Okay, now I've got a drawing that I did with the artist Stephen Bauman. It was really a fun experience. He provided the photographic reference. I studied with him last fall in 2019, and it was a choice experience. So all of the elements are in this drawing. We've got the early block in, we've got the height right here, we've got the back of the drawing right here, and here, that's the overall form. Here is this beautiful line that I've showed you that comes from here, here, and this overall line right here. So that basic shape, this window right here, within this space, that's what we want to be able to see. Okay, and now we're going to advance this. We're not taking this drawing into value yet, except for in the advanced figure drawing class. You're welcome to do that. But I'm thinking about lights and darks and thicks and thins. And remember that as something approaches the terminator or form shadow edge, it's going to get, we're going to articulate that in the drawing as well. So here we have a sphere. Okay, and I've drawn this out for you really quickly. Here's the light logic. Here is the terminator or the form shadow edge, right? So all of this is right here. This is all in the reflected light area according to light logic, but this is your form shadow edge right here. Okay, so contour lines are paying attention to this very process. And as you come down, you will have what's called a light-facing plane and a plane that turns down and under. So a plane either faces the light or it turns down and under. All right, so on the forehead, for example, although this is in shadow, this is often a very light plane, so we lighten our pencil. And as we go into shadow, we're going to put more pressure on that pencil and thicken the line. And then as we come up over this brow ridge, we'll lighten and then darken again as it passes here. So here on the glabella, this is a downturned plane that faces away from the light. This is a light-facing plane along this edge, and so it's a very thin, clear, crisp line. And then as this line trajects down the front plane of the face, again it's beginning to go into shadow. And so I can articulate that by putting extra pressure on my pencil and drawing that with a little thicker line. Now, underneath here, we're still in cast shadow right here as it comes around this philtrum. But this is a light-facing plane, so we begin to lighten this. And then it turns down and back and under. So that is the shadow. And so we have the opportunity to state that the light logic is passing down over this plane and getting slightly darker. On the outer arabesque, you can have more contrast on the area in light and less on area of shadow, because this is atmospheric perspective 101. So here we pull out, because this is a light-facing plane, and back. Now here the plane. Now if you get disoriented, then stop. And here's where this plane turns down and under. And our goal for contour is to make this line its most beautiful. So here it's turning down, and here's a light-facing plane right here. See this plane change right here in value. And I showed you this drawing at this part because I wanted you to see how I'm thinking about the light logic. So as that pulls up, light-facing plane, and then turning down and under into shadow. This is now in shadow right here. And so I'm going to darken and thicken that line. Now as I make the contour line, if there are passages that as I describe my value that I want to incorporate that in, you don't want this line to just stand right out. It doesn't. There used to be a fad in the 80s where women would outline their lips with a very dark pencil, a lip color, and then they'd fill in the actual lip color. Well, I have a sister-in-law who used this technique all the time, and she had very beautiful makeup applied, but as her regular lipstick on the colored portion of the lip would wear away, she would have this outline of her lips in dark pencil. And so that's not necessarily helpful for the look that you want to create. Now this hard dark contour line that we've just acquired, that's very beautiful, it's musical, it's organic, and let's write down some of these terms. So it's organic, it's musical, it is thick and thin, it is light and dark. All of these elements are on the outer contour or outer arabesque. Notice that on the interior of the form, we don't want a hard line. First off, it's hard to get rid of when you start doing value. And so we're only talking about the line on the outer portion of the drawing, like this. Now this can apply to the whole figure. It can apply to a portrait, and you can see by the example done by Henri Matisse that was the whole figure. And so it's something that you can use both on a portrait to finalize the line and make it its most beautiful. Another technique that you can do is you can use the side more of your pencil and thicken this line up. But this is also a very intuitive process. It's not something that is a hard, fast rule. In drawing, there's always going to be ways that you can add to the process, but try to learn the actual process first before you start making an invention. Oftentimes I'll see this with students. They'll try to change the recipe, if you will, or the process. They'll go, but I'm going to do it the way I learned before. And sometimes I wonder if they're fully embracing the process, because if you do that, you'll hold yourself back. So learn this process, and it's an additive process. It just helps you to have more of what you'll need to learn. So that's how I view it, is you have more than one way to accomplish the drawing. Now, I mentioned the term atmospheric perspective. Now, we in drawing and in painting, you're going to utilize atmospheric perspective. And the process of atmospheric perspective is this. It is very simple. As the principle is, and there's many types of perspective. The two that are used most commonly are atmospheric and linear. And we use both in figure drawing. So atmospheric perspective just means that as something goes toward the horizon line, the focus gets less, it gets grayer and bluer. So if you want to bring an object closer to the viewer, you increase the intensity or focus of that line quality. That's why on this side of the form, you're going to increase the contour line, where atmospherically, on this side of the form, you allow that form to turn back and turn into the light source. So this is also a drawing that I did as a demo, just kind of a start of a demo. I just wanted to show you in some ways how that's approached. So on tone paper. So it's the same process. But the same elements that we've been working on are evident in this process. Again, make sure that you're watching for this overall element. You don't want to put any of your interior decisions on a hard dark line, because if you start adding features with a hard dark line, it's very hard to incorporate it with any kind of accuracy, and it's very difficult to push it back and compress it into shadow. And that's what we're going to be working on. So make sure that you approach your drawing and build it in layers. And it is a process. Your features come at a later stage. Right now you're just perfecting this outer contour. Now, when does this stage start? And typically what I like to do is tell the students that you think in terms of gesture first. Then secondly, early block in. Then third, block in. And it's in this block in stage that you get your proportions of length. And you're doing comparative measurement, you're doing shape, you're looking for all of these elements, and then once you've gotten your accuracy, then you can move into the contour line. Now the contour line is when that first introduction into emotion. So whereas your first lines are very architectural or straight lines, now you're going to add in those layers, and you're going to add in thicks and thins and lights and darks. And it needs to incorporate into the overall system of light logic. So I hope that this has been helpful to you. I've enjoyed being with you today, and just so excited for you to continue to progress in your own drawings. I think you're doing a fantastic job. So practice these concepts into your drawing. I was looking up a Bruce Lee quote today, and remember how he talked about how many kicks it takes. So it takes 10,000 hours to actually acquire a skill level. And it's not just doing it once and being done with that process. It's 10,000 hours where you practice the one thing again and again and again. When I originally trained, I trained with an artist by the name of Anthony Ryder. And he talked about doing a class, taking a class with the artist Ted Seth Jacobs. And during that year, he was at the Art Students League in New York City. He just focused on one thing. He wanted to develop in his own process the early block-in, because it's in that stage between gesture and early block-in that you're going to get the accuracy for your whole drawings. And he commented that oftentimes he'd see students take their drawings clear into the value stage, but he just stuck with it no matter what and just disciplined himself to learn that one concept. Well, it was that process that had the attention from Ted Seth Jacobs. And at that point, Ted Seth Jacobs, 1 year later, although he never finished any of his drawings, Ted Seth Jacobs hired him to be his assistant, because what his discipline said is that he was willing to invest in himself, in his process. So that's our discussion for today about contour. It's a very important part of finishing the line. If you're doing drawings that are typical to what we've been doing as our first and second assignment, where you're just doing the outer contour, make your line its most beautiful. Don't make it scratchy. Make it more continuous, liquid, and definitely organic. Think about thicks and thins and lights and darks, and you want variation in that line quality. Anciently to the Greeks, where they were using music, if someone just played a single note again and again and again, they were put to death. And although I highly don't recommend that, but the philosophy is that there is beauty in repetition. There is beauty in variation. There is beauty in a very lovely liquid line. So I hope that helps today. I would encourage you to look up more of Henri Matisse's drawings. They're very beautiful, and there's a lot on Pinterest that you can look at. But I think that this just takes a little bit of time and practice because it is more intuitive. So thanks for being here today, and I hope you enjoyed our discussion on contour. Have a great week. Bye-bye.